Then we have Robert, who's a resident of 12th Avenue Arts. You guys might know Robert from his videos that have gone around the world when he would come out of 12th Avenue Arts. Tired of you chop guys, and he would they put barricades in the street. He would like one man army, man, and just go and throw all. He was like, I'm tired of you choppers, man. And every single, so the protesters would be like, every day. And Robert would be like, I'm gonna move your stuff every day. You know what I'm saying? So matter of fact, man, let's start with you, Robert. Because you're you'll tell us best, but you live there in 12th Avenue, which is literally right across the street, right across from the East Precinct, and it was inside the Chaz, and basically for all intents and purposes it was inside the CHOP because the further down 12th Avenue was barricaded, right. So your building was barricaded, but the longer story on that is you were barricaded for 8 days with the Seattle police. Right. And so a lot of people forget about that. People who live on Capitol Hill, they were barricaded for 8 days with the Seattle police, 2 weeks with CHOP, and then for a few days with SPD again. But man, the day that I met you was I walked up because I heard this yelling like, God, man, I'm tired of you guys, man. You guys, and you brought up a lot of valid points. One, you brought up like, man, would this be happening if it was the CD or the South End and things like that? But I think we'll bring you back for another show for that because that was important perspective. Would all these same people feel comfortable sitting on Othello or on Rainier or on MLK or 23rd? You know what I'm saying? But because it's here, But you talked about in your building. You said that there was people who were disabled and things like that. Talk about what it was like first being in that building and the obstacles that you faced, even when the SPD had control of the area and then the CHOP.
I started briefly when SPD had control. When you seen the barricades when they was National Guard, they was deep all around the block. So we was adjusting to that. So and then I believe June 8th, that's when everybody was surprised. The CHOP protesters were surprised that SPD left. All the residents were surprised that everybody left. And nobody knew what to do because they left early in the morning. So then by nightfall, it'd come over deals like, okay, cool. This is how we're going to go about this. We got to arm ourselves, this and this and that. And it was alarming to see it transition so quickly. And nobody knew what to do and how to diffuse the situation, figure the situation out. And you just have to adapt to some things quicker than others. So it was rough.
So when we talked that day, you were just like, man, I'm fed up. You're like, man, I'm fed up, and it was everybody was trying to stop you. You was bad. You was just like, you was giving them the old school Marshawn, just the forearm shiver, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, get off me. I mean, and you move, and the thing is like clearly we could see that the street wasn't gonna open, but it seemed like that was just you every day sending a message like, nah, man, I'm not gonna let your stuff be here.
Yes, and I was just making a statement like, this street is not. We're not giving up this street.
You, as in you, the residents, weren't giving up the street to CHOP.
Me, the resident, wasn't giving up the street to CHOP because we live here. We pay taxes, all this. And the protests, we're all for the protests. Nobody was against the protests. We was against what went on after hours when the news cameras stopped recording. I believe you was the only ones that was brave enough. Salute to you. So seeing that, and that was my frustration. So every time the media and the world will see me erupt, it was my frustration the day after. And anybody will be frustrated when you see young kids being killed or shootings happen that there's just no need for. And so anybody will be fed up after 2-3 weeks, after you don't know what's going on or what's going to happen day in and day out. You'll be exhausted. So coming home from work or from wherever and just to be harassed just to get in your building, and it's crazy. And these kids are armed. You don't know if they're gonna shoot. You don't know what they're gonna do. So it's like, at what point who's gonna step in? Because you see SPD, they didn't step in. They wasn't responding. It's been a few residents that called 911 several days in a row, and they had said like, we're not responding. Could you meet us outside of the CHOP boundaries and stuff? And at what point do you say, hey, enough is enough? So every time people would see me erupt, it was just like anybody would be like, hey, enough is enough. And so every day they was like, hey, like you said, they would chant, hey, we're here, we're here, we're there. And I'd be like, still standing here.
You come out there with your everyday as well. So excuse me. So Ashley, like I said, he went through 2 different barricades. He went being barricaded by the police, by SPD, then barricaded by the Chaz and Chop. And you see, he reached a level to where he was just like, enough's enough. And like I said, further down the street there was like, you know, further barricades. So like him moving the stuff wasn't gonna open the street, but him moving the stuff was like, yo, man, it's not okay with me that you guys are blocking.
And go ahead. I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What's the question?
Well, no, I mean, it's like, I mean, the way that he expressed himself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you could speak to that, if at all.
And I mean, each person has a different type of response. You know, I don't know how many people were out there helping you, but like he said, he's a resident.
Just me.
Just you?
Yeah, it was just him and like
you,
50,
solo.
100 choppers.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah. So each, you know, when you're fed up, you never know how your body's gonna respond. I love the quote. You know, I'm not a killer, but don't push me. So you never know to what level you're going to get to a point and actually respond, especially when this is your home and you're looking out and you see the reality. The majority of the people who are out, who are doing this, when they don't look like you, they don't look like the people who this is meant to be about. So there's different levels. And so I would have to have more of a thorough conversation to really understand what was going on, what your history was, what led to that point for you to actually be out there every single day by yourself, while the protesters are also out there every day. Because, you know, I definitely support the protesters. I support the cause. I don't know how I would react if that was my home. But I also, you know, go back to our history.
Well, I remember Robert brought up that, like, you know, he was like in the building. There was several homebound or disabled people, and like one of the days we talked several days over 2 weeks. And one of the days we talked about wasn't even his frustration. It was the fact that, like, man, you know, somebody has to come in and have someone bathe them and things like that. And people who were providing services to homebound people in the building couldn't get in the building. Was that correct?
Yes.
Right.
And the thing about it, like before I started, people started seeing me voice my opinion amongst the CHOP.
Yeah.
I seen these individuals, my residents, come in or rushing in from the building. They heard that this is after SPD had already retreated, and this is the CHOP security just harassing them, asking them, hey, do you live here? And this one individual lady, she's a single mom, I believe, and she had 2 kids, but she was on the elevator with me, and she started breaking down crying because her little kid asked her, Mom, why did that man with a gun ask us, do we live here? That right there touches my heart. I was in the military. I'm diagnosed with PTSD.
Oh, wow.
And to see something like that, it's really hurtful, because nobody should be put through that torment in America. Like I said, you've been overseas, right? So to see that in America go on, nobody should be put through that. If anybody, mother, grandparents, lived in a type of neighborhood where this CHOP thing just happened, anybody will be highway straight there going, hey, you're not stopping my mom from any of this going on. So that was my frustration was from. People may say, hey, that was an angry black man. No, my frustrations was from those residents that couldn't stand up for themselves. And being diagnosed with PTSD, I'm a loner. I enjoy being by myself because I can't control the flashbangs, the booms. I done been to Iraq. I done seen it all. So to see it in my backyard and to see people continue to indulge in this, it's frightening, because that's not what America is about. America is about, we can agree to disagree, to understand that, hey, we can find some common ground, that we both have knowledge on both sides, that we may not be right, I may not be right, but understand that we can agree to disagree. But not, hey, if I don't agree with you, I'm gonna shoot you. That's not fair.
Yeah, man, after my own heart. I think that people hear me on the stream all the time, and even on the morning show, I tell people that, like, man, we don't have to agree, but let's make a commitment to understand. You know what I'm saying?
That's all.
And we can understand each other's point of view. It's dope.
That's it.
And since we're free to disagree, I will say that seems to be the America that I know, where, you know, you are asked, is this your home? They may not always have a gun, but as a homeowner, I'm constantly asked, do I own my home? All the time. The car that I'm driving, is it mine? And, you know, I live in Kent. I'm not even in Bellevue or like any type of real neighborhood like that. But this is the reality of what many of us are experiencing. And that's why the protest occurred. It did go a little to the left. You know, it may not necessarily have been as long as it was, or the way that it was, if it was in a black community or if it was predominantly black. All we have to go on is what if. And, you know, in therapy, I always say that's destructive thinking when you start going down what if, shoulda, coulda, woulda, because we don't necessarily know. But, you know, that's normal for so many people, so many of us. And there's a lot of sacrifices that need to be made in protest. And it's unfortunate that that was your neighborhood. But I mean, there were disabled people during the boycotts. There were people who couldn't walk and were disabled, and for the cause they sacrificed, and they chose not to ride those buses. They chose to walk until the soles of their feet bled because they wanted to be down for the cause, and they wanted to sacrifice so that we could sit anywhere we want on the bus. So there's different types of sacrifices, and it's normal to be angry, because I would be mad if I was, you know, walking too, but I'm gonna be out there and I would walk till the soles of my feet bled. I say this now, but I wasn't alive then, so I don't necessarily know what my mindset would be. I would like to think I would be one of the ones out there walking, but, you know, there's sacrifices that need to be made in order for us to get the justice that we need.
Well, this particular building right here, and they put out a letter. Jamie put out a letter about a week in the chop, because one of their biggest complaints, to be honest with you, 90% of the letter, and it's on my Twitter somewhere, people could go through it from a few weeks ago, 90% of their complaints at the time was actually SPD. They were like, man, tear gas came through the windows, flashbangs kept us up at night, and everything else. And then they were telling Chop, like, look, man, basically don't repeat the same things. Turn down your music, control your people, because 12th Avenue Arch, where Robert's saying, they literally had National Guard up and down in front of the building. There was police, National Guard, state police, SWAT vehicles, all this stuff was in front of their building. And then when, like, the gas is indiscriminate. When it comes out, that tear gas goes everywhere. So these guys, not only, you know, they went through their thing with Chop, which you could see, at least with Chop, you went out there and you were like moving their stuff. I bet you wasn't out there with them National Guardsmen, was you?
I'm a smart man.
Hey, when that gas came out, you wasn't out there trying to move the gas and everything.
I'm a smart man. I'm definitely a smart man and stuff.
The most unfortunate part, though, is that I bet you, since we're talking about bets, I bet there was no mental health services offered to any of the people in that building. Has anybody reached out to you?
And no, and see, I don't know about the rest of the buildings around the neighborhood and stuff, but mine's in particular, our building houses the SPD personal vehicles and the bomb squad and all their equipment.
Yeah,
so
got
that's
a tunnel underneath there.
That's the only reason that our building put out a statement and stuff, because our building was really prominent. Like, okay, then because some of the Chop personnel, they tried to target the building. It's like, yo, you guys, I get your message, but it's like, what point are you at? What sacrifices you getting at? Because at nighttime, this is not protesting. What are you guys doing? You guys doing it in the daytime? I love it. You know, let's keep doing it. But at nighttime, that was the frustration. That was all the concerns. That's all the fears come from. You know.
Right.